On the evening of November 13, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. went on a killing spree, murdering his entire family while they slept in their beds. He used a .35 caliber rifle to execute his parents, 2 brothers, and 2 sisters. Ronald later claimed that voices inside his head urged him to kill them, but his defense was rejected, and he was convicted of second-degree murder. The crime scene was horrifying. All victims were shot in the back and there were no signs of struggle. Despite Ronald's arrest, the eerie circumstances surrounding the killings left a lasting stain on the house, and rumors of malevolent forces began to spread long before the Lutz family moved in. The murders were said to be so brutal that the idea of anyone living in that house afterward seemed impossible, but the Lutz family would soon prove otherwise. After the brutal DeFeo murders, the house at 112 Ocean Avenue was put up for sale. The Lutz family, unaware of its horrific history, purchased the property in December 1975. They were looking for a fresh start and found the price attractive given the house's condition and the fact that it was located near the water. The family included George and Kathy Lutz and their 3 children, Daniel, Christopher, and Melissa. Despite being unaware of the grisly history, the family was warned about the house's dark past by the realtor, but they still went ahead with the purchase. The family moved in, eager to start anew in their spacious 6-bedroom home. The house, though beautiful, had a dark and unsettling atmosphere that the Lutzes initially overlooked. However, it didn't take long for things to take a terrifying turn. When the Lutz family moved in, they were unaware of the tragic murders that had taken place the previous year. The DeFeo family murders were kept relatively quiet at first, as they were still part of an ongoing investigation. But it wasn't long before the Lutz family began to experience the strange and terrifying happenings that would soon come to define the Amityville horror. The couple was also unaware of the gruesome details of the murders at the time of their move. This lack of knowledge only amplified the family's shock when they began to experience the supernatural events. The Lutzes were soon plunged into an unnerving reality that forced them to confront something they hadn't anticipated. The unknowingness of the Lutz family only made the eventual terror they faced more profound. What they thought was simply a new home would soon turn into a haunting nightmare. Almost immediately after moving in, the Lutz family began experiencing unusual phenomena that they could not explain. One of the first signs of the haunting was the pervasive coldness that settled throughout the house, especially in certain rooms. It didn't matter what the weather was like outside. These rooms were inexplicably cold, making the family uncomfortable and adding to the house's overall sense of foreboding. Additionally, the Lutz family reported encountering disturbing smells. In the house, sometimes the air would become foul with an odor they couldn't trace, and the smells would shift throughout the house, as though they had a life of their own. Some described the smell as akin to rotting meat or decay, which is particularly disturbing given the house's dark history. The cold spots and strange odors were persistent and caused the family to feel uneasy, as though the house itself was alive and feeding off their fear. The Lutz family was subjected to strange noises that seemed to emanate from nowhere. They reported hearing footsteps in empty rooms, doors slamming shut on their own, and loud bangs as though something heavy had fallen or been knocked over. These sounds often occurred at night, disturbing the family as they tried to rest. The noises were not consistent. They seemed to appear out of nowhere, sometimes when no one was in the vicinity of the source of the sound. The family would search for an explanation, but they never found one. These sounds added to the growing sense of paranoia and terror in the house, as the Lutz family couldn't explain why they were happening. Eventually, the constant barrage of unexplained sounds wore them down psychologically, making them question whether they were truly alone in the house, or if some malevolent force was at work. One of the most bizarre and unsettling phenomena reported by the Lutz family was the appearance of green slime that oozed from the walls and the floorboards of the house. Kathy Lutz was the first to notice the slime, which would appear in several locations around the house, especially in the basement and in the living room. It had a sickly green color and a thick, viscous consistency. The slime seemed to appear without any logical explanation. It didn't behave like water or any other substance the Lutz family was familiar with. At times, it would appear as if the slime was almost alive, moving in ways that suggested it was controlled by some unseen force. The slime added another layer to the family's growing fears, as it seemed to have a malevolent presence behind it, something more than just a physical substance. The slime phenomenon has remained one of the most disturbing elements of the Amityville horror, as it defied all conventional understanding. Among the most shocking experiences the Lutz family encountered was the apparent levitation of Kathy Lutz. One night, while the family was in the master bedroom, Kathy reported rising from her bed and floating in the air. This strange experience was said to be brief, but incredibly intense. The event left Kathy terrified, and she wasn't the only one who experienced strange physical occurrences. George Lutz reported feeling an overpowering presence, one that seemed to want to harm him, while Kathy became convinced that something was trying to push her out of the house. Levitation, often regarded as a clear sign of paranormal activity, was just one of the physical manifestations of the house's eerie energy. These events caused the Lutz family to question their own sanity, as the experiences defied all logic and science. Such disturbing occurrences made it impossible for them to continue living in the house. The mirrors in the house were another source of terror for the Lutz family. George Lutz reported that one evening, while gazing into a mirror, he witnessed his reflection changing. His face appeared to age rapidly, and he saw himself becoming an older version of himself. Disfigured, haggard, and almost unrecognizable. This experience left George shaken, and he couldn't explain what had occurred. Mirrors are often seen as portals to other dimensions or as tools for spirits to communicate, which made this event even more alarming for the family. As the events in the house grew more intense, the Lutzes began to feel as though the house itself had some sort of control over them, manipulating their perceptions and mental state. The mirror incident was just one of many moments that caused them to fear the house's power. Would you like me to continue with more key points in similar detail? Let me know how you would like to proceed. You said, yes. ChatGPT said, here are the remaining key points in detail. As the haunting progressed, the Lutz family reported disturbing physical attacks that seemed to be linked to the malevolent presence in the house. George Lutz in particular experienced a sensation of being choked by an unseen force. At times he would wake up in the middle of the night feeling as if something was physically pressing down on his chest or constricting his throat, making it difficult for him to breathe. This kind of physical assault was not limited to George. Kathy also experienced strange marks on her skin, including deep scratches, as though something had been trying to claw at her. These physical manifestations were terrifying for the family, as they felt that they were not merely dealing with a haunting of sounds or sights, but with an active and potentially violent force that could harm them. The physical assaults were a crucial factor in their decision to leave the house after only 28 days, unable to bear the constant threats to their safety. One of the most bizarre and unsettling experiences the Lutz family encountered was the appearance of a large demonic-looking pig with glowing red eyes. Danny Lutz, the youngest of the children, frequently reported seeing the creature at the window of his bedroom. According to Danny, the pig was massive, with eyes that glowed a fiery red, and it seemed to be watching him. The sight of the creature terrified him to the point of being unable to sleep. Other members of the family also reported feeling a sense of dread when they passed by the window. but Danny's experiences were the most vivid and consistent. The appearance of the red-eyed pig is one of the most iconic and terrifying elements of the Amityville horror legend, and it is often cited as a symbol of the evil presence that seemed to haunt the house. The pig's appearance has been interpreted as an omen of death or as a manifestation of something deeply sinister. One of the most chilling experiences reported by George Lutz was hearing a deep, guttural voice warning him to get out. George was alone in the house at the time when he heard the voice, and he immediately felt as though something malevolent was communicating directly with him. The voice was said to be so powerful and commanding that it left George feeling terrified and overwhelmed. He was convinced that the house was trying to expel him and his family, to drive them away. This voice was only one of several auditory disturbances the Lutz family reported, but it stood out as particularly sinister. The warning to get out seemed to reflect the evil nature of the house, a place that didn't want the Lutzes to remain there. The voice contributed to the mounting sense of danger the family felt, and George's belief that the house itself was sentient and intent on harming them became increasingly undeniable. The Lutz family lived in the house for a mere 28 days, but during that time, they experienced an overwhelming series of terrifying events. The family's decision to leave was prompted by the escalating intensity of the supernatural occurrences. After enduring physical assaults, disturbing visions, strange noises, and the feeling that they were being watched, they fled in fear. Yisu, 28-day time span is a defining feature of the Amityville horror, as it represents the brief but harrowing experience the Lutz family endured. The decision to leave was not made lightly, but by the end of their short stay, they could no longer ignore the danger posed by the house. The fact that they stayed in the home for less than a month, yet experienced so many life-altering and terrifying events, has contributed to the enduring mystery and legend surrounding the Amityville horror. After the Lutz family fled the house, they sought the help of renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens were already famous for their work with other high-profile cases, such as the haunting of the Perron family, which inspired the Conjuring films. The Warrens entered the house with the belief that it was indeed haunted by a malevolent spirit or possibly multiple entities. The Warrens reported that the house was filled with a strong, oppressive energy, which they believed to be demonic in nature. They also claimed to have witnessed paranormal events themselves, including a cold presence in the home and psychic impressions that suggested the house was alive with evil. Their investigation was part of the wider effort to validate the Lutzes' claims, though the Warrens' involvement only added fuel to the media frenzy surrounding the story. The paranormal investigation helped elevate the Amityville horror to an international phenomenon, adding credibility to the Lutz family's claims. While the Amityville horror became a media sensation, it was not without its fair share of skepticism and controversy. Critics and paranormal experts questioned the validity of the Lutz family's claims, with some suggesting that they fabricated the events to gain fame and fortune. The Lutzes later admitted that they had exaggerated some details of the story for dramatic effect, which fueled accusations of fraud. Additionally, some investigators and journalists believe that the paranormal events could have been the result of psychological stress or the power of suggestion, rather than actual supernatural forces. The family was also criticized for their involvement in the subsequent book and film adaptations, leading to accusations that they were exploiting their experiences for profit. This ongoing debate about the authenticity of the haunting has only deepened the mystery, with many still unsure whether the events were truly paranormal or a carefully constructed hoax. The Amityville horror has left a lasting imprint on popular culture and the world of paranormal investigation. The story has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films, most notably the 1979 film The Amityville Horror, which was followed by several sequels and remakes. The Lutz family's experiences have been revisited and retold in various forms, ensuring that the story remains a cornerstone of modern horror lore. The house itself, located at 112 Ocean Avenue, became a tourist destination for paranormal enthusiasts and those curious about the haunting. Over the years, new generations have continued to be fascinated by the Amityville Horror, and the story has remained one of the most famous and widely debated paranormal cases in history. Despite the skepticism and controversy, the legend of the Amityville house endures, ensuring that its